Hello and welcome back. Let's move into our next session, which is talking about the Hydrogen at Scale project in a little bit more detail, and then also the other hydrogen research at the University of Texas at Austin. I am Varun Rai, I'm director of the UT Energy Institute, and I will begin this session by giving you an overview of hydrogen research at UT in a way that situates it in the broader energy research that happens across campus. So, I have two objectives: give you a sense of the broader research that happens, some of our key priorities and initiatives, and then where does hydrogen really fit into that and where we are headed. And then Nico Bouwkamp from Frontier Energy will tell us more about the Hydrogen at Scale project. Let me begin by acknowledging a couple of things. One is that there are, as we heard from Bob Hebner and as I alluded earlier, hydrogen research at academic and research institutions in Texas is not new. And as we speak, there are other entities, other institutions in Texas other than UT Austin that are really doing great work, including Rice University, including the University of Houston, Texas A&M, Texas Tech University, and others. And I do acknowledge the great work that goes on there as well. And I know there are members in the audience from these institutions. So welcome, thank you for joining, and thank you for your collaboration. And the second thing I want to mention is this whole aspect of hydrogen becoming so salient and potentially offering a great pathway forward that brings in what happens to the future of natural gas, how it all interacts with carbon capture, utilization and storage, and multiple pathways of hydrogen. Really, that's very exciting, but also Texas is at the center of helping evolve that future, but then also help evolve its own economy and the economic and social impact that ensues from that. So that's kind of really the thrust of why we believe that hydrogen is so important for the research that goes on at UT. And as I'll try to share, there are many elements that really place us in a very unique position to do that. So next slide, please. So let me begin by sharing with you the way we, from the inside, view energy research that goes on at UT. The first one is, really we take great pride in the diversity and depth of research across the energy spectrum. Historically, as Christine mentioned in the opening session, a lot of great work that helped really make fundamental contributions to the oil and gas industry. And then, for example, in 2019, one of our colleagues, John Goodenough, won the Nobel Prize for lithium-ion batteries. So really the full spectrum. We have over 350 plus faculty and researchers that work on different energy issues, and these are our real assets. And this is also an area where UT is very strong. Our schools continue to hire the best and the brightest, and we are able to attract because we do have some of the best research programs across the globe. So that's really the main mantra, if you will, of how we continue to do great research, but then also identify important issues looking into the future. The coverage of issues is global. Something that is very important into how all this plays out is the presence of very active, over 30 plus centers that focus on energy issues. And one of them, obviously you heard from Bob Hebner. He runs the Center for Electromechanics that is housed in the Cockrell School of Engineering. And the centers really enable us to plug into different entities, organizations, and in particular, the industry from the very onset. So, a common theme of much of the work that happens at UT is applications and potential commercialization is not an afterthought. Rather, it is built into the applied focus of research activities. We heard from Bob the role of universities in education and training the energy leaders of today and tomorrow. UT Austin takes great pride, perhaps more than any other place on the face of this earth, to have trained energy professionals of the world, and we continue to do so. There is a lot of activity in terms of changing our curriculum, designing new programs, new degrees, new certificates, and enabling our students with that experience and skills so that they can go out and continue to make the energy system and innovate in the energy system in a way that is resilient in the long run. complementary assets of outsized excellence. This is extremely important. Much of the work happens in these centers of excellence that are institutes or centers, including the Bureau of Economic Geology, which has been historically powerhouse, and as you will hear later from Mark Susser, doing very important work in hydrogen storage, geologic storage. The Texas Advanced Computing Center, Odin Institute for Computational Engineering and Sciences, Texas Material Institutes, and many more. We have the new Institute for Machine Learning, and this is where our faculty and research really spend a lot of time in the labs, collaborating with other folks and students to do the work, and that plays out extremely importantly in the impact of the work that we do. And finally, the connections with industry, foundation, government, and policy. We do this actively, and it's important because research and its impact on society and our economy is more and more important, especially in the energy system. Next slide, please. If you can just move on to the bullets, all the bullets on this slide. Yes, what the diversity of work that does at UT is really gives us a balanced view of the global energy system. When we have a discussion here at UT on the future of the energy system, in the same room, you will find very different views and options and ideas for solutions, yet there is great understanding just because of the history of our work, just because of our engagement with other colleagues and other areas of research. There's a great openness and understanding, and that's why some of the comments we heard from Representative Darby in terms of and Representative McCall in terms of an approach that includes many different solutions, that really thinks about uncertainty and brings in different resources and solutions for long-term resilience. So we really have that approach inbuilt into our DNA, if you will. The Energy Institute itself, the institute that I direct, it serves as a gateway for the researchers and centers across UT. And one of the things that we really have worked a lot on is creating this umbrella push of fueling a sustainable energy transition. And I'll say a little bit more on that later. Next slide, please. Next slide, yes. So more about hydrogen research at UT. I would first like to point you to the website at the very bottom. It's one place, information on all the research that happens at UT, all the hydrogen researchers, and really where we are coming at it. So you'll find much more detail on that. Hydrogen research at UT is not new. We have played historically a very important role all the way from deploying hydrogen-powered bus in Texas on the road to also developing new materials to produce hydrogen from sunlight and water. And we have done that for quite some time and continue to do a lot of work there. There is great strength across the university in different schools. So Cockrell School of Engineering, Jackson School of Geosciences, College of Natural Sciences, as well as researchers at the Energy Institute. And something that really has happened over the last couple of years, very importantly, and if you go to the next slide, it brings home the point that researchers across the campus are interacting on a very regular basis. So this is not just a compilation of different researchers, rather we all actually meet. There's a hydrogen roundup that actually meets on a bi-weekly basis. There's very close interaction and collaboration that is proactively seeded. And the other part of this, the question that was raised earlier about potential collaboration across universities, it's also something that we face within universities, even within schools sometimes, right? So how do we bring engineers and scientists to work together with lawyers and policy scholars and finance scholars to really think about integrated solutions to problems? Just a scientific invention won't do the job, because we really have to, the type of change we're talking about, has to move into the market in the next 10, 15, 20 years. So, that approach is very important, and we have taken a very proactive approach in bringing that integrated perspective. So our researchers work on, the full spectrum of hydrogen issues, all the way from catalysts, membranes, controls, power electronics, vehicle design. Some of those are mentioned here. I already noted several of the centers, but I cannot overemphasize this point really as to how this ecosystem of different assets and different skills that exist in different parts of the scientific community really enable us to position very quickly and start addressing things and problems at scale. Next slide, please. When we took a look at this last year, really much of our work falls in these four broad themes: materials and devices, where we are focusing on improving materials to lower the cost and raise the performance of fuel cells and electrolyzers in particular. That is something that has already come up many times in today's meeting, and that cost and what happens with technologies will be very, very important, perhaps one of the most important determinants as these technologies try to penetrate the market in competition, if you will, with other options. Storage and distribution, developing subsurface hydrogen storage, and you will hear from Mark Suster later, but then also other types of distribution technologies for enabling next generation transportation. System integration, all the way from vehicles and trains. Bob Hebner already alluded to some examples, but this is a great area of expertise, all the way from system design, systems modeling, techno-economic analysis, all the way even more bottom up, power electronics of these systems as well. So there's a lot of great work that goes on. And then finally, supply chain, techno-economic analysis, as well as infrastructure and policy. If you go to that website that I alluded to earlier, you will find that under each of these themes, we have listed many of the major projects. So each theme has at least half a dozen up to a dozen or so projects that provides more details about some of the work and who those leads are. So feel free to reach out to them, communicate with them. But as I move to the final slide, I believe we go to the next slide. This is hydrogen at scale project. So you will hear next from Nico on that. And before I hand it over to Nico, my final slide basically drives a very important point. If I go to the next slide, that much of this we are doing, and if you can click through all the different pieces here, there are multiple animations. Just click one more, perhaps, thank you. That in our Fueling a Sustainable Energy Transition initiative, we are addressing this aspect of collaboration in an interdisciplinary fashion, where we have formed, and as Bob mentioned, we have actively incentivized collaboration across disciplines by teams of faculty across a wide range of projects and problem areas that under the umbrella of Fueling a Sustainable Energy Transition. Some of the ones that are marked here, there is a lot of focus on carbon capture and storage here at UT, as in many other institutions, and then also in natural gas, which historically we have done a lot of great work, but then there is really very, very pioneering work also happening in driving natural gas systems, for example, in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And the main point here is that this trifecta of what happens with the future of natural gas, in combination with carbon capture, utilization, and storage, and different pathways for hydrogen. And we see we have done a lot of work, but that's an area we're bringing together very systematically our people through collaborative projects and addressing and developing programs. So when I come to the very final session later on in the day, I'll share with you where we're headed with some of that. But that's a very high level view of some of the work that is happening at UT and how hydrogen is really embedded in a long history of work across the full spectrum of energy, focusing more and more at this intersection of natural gas, CCUS, and hydrogen. So with that, I would like to invite Nico next to talk to us a little bit about the Hydrogen at Scale project. Nico.
Good morning, Varun. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me to speak on the H2 at Scale project in Austin and in the Port of Houston region. I'm thankful also to the DOE that they were willing to support this project, and that, as you've heard now, was an excellent motivation for our partners and many others in Texas to pay a little bit of extra attention to hydrogen overall, considering where Texas is already with this and where it hopes to be moving based on opportunities that are available. So click the next. Thank you. So this is an overview, and I'll give you a few seconds to take a look at these all these partners we have in this project. We have all partners that are based in Texas and they have operations one way or another that are already or can be connected to hydrogen. As you will see, some names don't make complete sense within the Texas context. They're more California-based, but in the big scheme of things, they do because they are related to or overseen or part of larger companies that operate throughout the U.S. as well as in Texas. So that's an overview of our industry partners. US DOE, Office of Hydrogen Fuel Cell Technology Office, which is Sunita's office, is sponsoring us to do this work. And we're thankful, as I said earlier, for that. And we think it's very timely and the location is also well chosen. A question to the audience is that, what do you think if Texas could provide the lowest cost hydrogen for all of the nation? Something to think about, and I think that's also the topic of our discussion here of this panel. And I hope this panel and this forum will initiate broader discussion about what the potential is of hydrogen within Texas, considering what exists and also what is possible. Next slide. We've received an overview of what H2 at scale, what the concept is. And I won't get into details about the H2 at scale integration of the different systems. Sunita explained it very well. And if you want to look up what she was talking about, there's a specific link here on the right side of the page of the slide to go to where you can read up on all the details, all the projects that have been funded by DOE and that DOE is involved in, and would like to get provide support for to get things kickstarted, because that's really one of the main intents of DOE's funding, is to kickstart new things and new opportunities, innovation and energy efficiency and integration of systems. As you've heard already as well, is that Texas is ideal to lead hydrogen production for a sustainable energy system. I gave you a little bit of a blow up of the area where we're talking about. We're really talking about the Gulf Coast. You can see here that hydrogen is produced in the Gulf Coast in a major way. Texas is actually the largest established hydrogen producer in the nation at the lowest cost already. That's from the manufacturing plant or the generation reformation sites and in the pipeline. Also, Texas has excellent resources with regard to natural gas. Renewable natural gas, although maybe not explored as much as it could be, but also solar and wind for the production of renewable hydrogen, and that's what RH2 stands for. And when I say renewable hydrogen, you can think of all the all kinds of levels of renewable hydrogen, be it 10% renewable hydrogen or 20% or 100%, and that all can come together combined with other ways of hydrogen that's produced from other sources. And also, as Daryl Wilson already pointed out, major industry leaders from the Hydrogen Council have a significant presence in Texas, and it's also related to Texas being the largest established hydrogen producer in the nation. Next slide, please. So a little bit more details about our H2 at scale project in Texas. The project consists of 2 tracks, and I'll describe the first one first. That is based in Austin. On this little map or this little schematic, you can see that the first and the second tracks are in different regions. Austin is a little farther inland, but it's also closer to other resources, renewable power resources, as the Port of Houston is. So the Port of Houston is the second area, but in Austin, what we're doing is to demonstrate multiple renewable hydrogen generation options. And when I say multiple, I mean hydrogen from electrolysis, from wind and solar, as well as hydrogen from reformation of renewable natural gas. And the different partners that play a role in that, for example, waste management and pipeline operators, are all part of our project to see how we can use this to come to a cost-effective hydrogen. And what's also unique about this project is that we, compared to what has happened before, because many of these things have been done before, is that this, in a way, puts all these options together, and that has not happened before. The production options as well as the user options through vehicle fueling as well as baseload use of hydrogen through providing power to a computing center, in this case, the University of Austin, Texas Advanced Computing Center. And that all, we hope that, and we expect that we will get a very good insight on what can be done to achieve cost reduction to an optimal level that it's sustainable and beneficial to all the users. The second track, and if you can click the next, there we go, is to develop a framework for actionable H2 at scale plans in Texas, including decarbonization, energy storage, and fuel cell vehicle rollout. And that's really focused and centered on the Port of Houston and the larger region. What this also does is that it's really looking at low-hanging fruit and how this low-hanging fruit can be harvested, also through the benefit of policy and regulatory barriers, on knowing what they are and dealing with them. I think the representatives earlier mentioned as well that they were willing to help with this, so I hope some of their staff, or maybe they themselves are still on the phone to listen and hear what is being presented today. But that's an area that could use help. I realize that Texas is not the same as other states, for example, California, where I'm based, that Texas has the opportunity here to make it really happen from an economic perspective with less regulatory quote unquote motivation. And then also Texas is ideal because, as I said earlier, there's large existing industrial resources that can be leveraged and possibly be tied together. And when I say that, I don't only mean on the hydrogen production side, but Texas is also the home to large wind farms and increasing number of solar farms as well. And those can all be tied together, and that's along the lines of the H2 at scale thinking. And what we also do in the next click is that we will, can you click it? Yeah, there we go. We will provide feedback between the two different tracks to make sure that lessons learned in one area are applied and used in the other area. Even though from a timeline perspective, these projects don't completely align, because it takes a significant amount of time or a good amount of time to implement hardware, as we're doing in Austin, like hydrogen production and fueling, and a stationary fuel cell to provide power to the Advanced Computing Center. That takes time to implement, but the study is already ongoing, and we're learning a lot. The team members at University of Texas Energy Institute, in the form of Alan Lloyd and Mike Lewis, they're in charge of the team that's studying that and doing the modeling for the Port of Houston. We're learning a lot about what's happening in Texas, and we're hoping to have a feedback loop, or we're working on providing feedback back and forth between the two different areas, and provide insight for everyone that's interested, but particularly the project members, and what the potential of hydrogen is. Next slide. So a little bit about the progress we've been able to accomplish to date. We had a press release in September last year, which was very successful, generated a lot of attention, both in Texas, but also in the US and abroad. An example here is you see these screenshots with the University of Texas tower and a wind park, or at least two windmills. That was from a broadcast by the public broadcast entity in Japan, who did interviews and put together a special on hydrogen in the US, specifically our project and what was going on in the US. The on-site equipment at University of Texas Austin is mostly on the Pickle Research Center, or it's all in the Pickle Research Center. So that's from the first track. As you can see here in the screenshot on the right from a map from Google Docs, or from Google Maps, you can see where the Center of Electromechanics is. They have a heavy involvement in the project as well. The star indicates where there's existing equipment, and that was actually recently moved and shipped to GTI in Des Plaines for refurbishment and updating and upgrades to the equipment, so it can be used for reforming hydrogen, reforming renewable natural gas again to make hydrogen. And then also the Advanced Computing Center indicated here with the blue dotted line, the TAC. And so these two areas will be connected, both with hydrogen generation. Hydrogen storage will happen in this area, on the campus, and the power will be provided directly. What's also going on right now is that we're working closely with the UT facilities group to figure out what the best site is for the equipment. Even though we thought we had it figured out, there are always challenges with regards to distances and what do you need to do and what works within the campus. And so we're figuring that out right now, making good progress, and we think we're staying on time with all of that. We've also procured long lead equipment. One item of that, and I think Sunita was hinting at that already, is a simple fuel unit which has hydrogen generation capacity and a dispensing capacity that was also supported by DOE as they provided the seed funding, and we're glad that we can make use of what the outcome is of that, and we hope that will be success. We look forward to the success of that. And then there's also part of the Advanced Computing Center is the power supply. There's a microgrid, and that has solar tied into it, and we're assessing the data right now to see how we can best use the stationary fuel cell to provide power to the computing center. And from what we understand, the computing center is willing to take any power we can generate using a fuel cell. So we're looking forward to that, and we hope to meet any need we can meet. With regards to the Port of Houston framework, we're currently working hard to collect the data of what the existing infrastructure looks like and the energy systems surrounding that, as well as elsewhere in Texas with regard to power production. And we've developed a list of stakeholders, and that list continues to grow. And if you have an interest in providing input on that, let either Mike Lewis or myself know. I have our contact info on the last slide. So please reach out if you want to contribute to that or participate in that. 1 second. Go back to the previous slide, please. And we continue to have engagements with stakeholders, but we know that what's often the case with this kind of technologies is that we're only touching the tip of the iceberg. So far, we've been able to see a little bit more of the iceberg, but if you're listening in on this call and have an interest in contributing to the Port of Houston framework study and assessment and modeling, please let us know, and maybe we can follow up with you if you have an interest to find out more. Next slide, please. So with regards to Texas, there are many expansion integration opportunities. These bullets are largely derived from what H2Scale already depicts, in the sense of domestically sourced hydrogen can be used for multiple sources and or export. That's what I'm saying. What if Texas could provide the lowest cost hydrogen for all of the nation? Hydrogen also enables, as was mentioned earlier, zero emission options for all transportation modes. And when we say that, we mean all. It could be rail, could be maritime, could be on the road, could be off road, it could even be in the air. So and on rail, but also for stationary, remote, and portable power. And when you think about remote power or stationary, you can also think about cell phone backup power. And I think that's nowadays an essential infrastructure for people to communicate. So that's an important area to look at. Then also the grid could be used for responsive load for grid stability. And I think gigawatt hour scale storage was already mentioned. I think Sunita mentioned something about the largest underground hydrogen storage cavern in the US, maybe in the world, maybe not, but in the US at least. And there's a lot more potential for that as well. So we've only talked about existing storage, but there is a lot more potential throughout different regions in Texas for that as well. Hydrogen is, as you may know, a critical feedstock for many process and chemical industries, already underway, already being used. And so if existing stranded renewables are not, or stranded renewables are obviously not used, if they can be put to use and improve the return on investment for those operating renewable power farms, then that's a benefit that should be used. And then you could also include or create any combination of those of the ones I mentioned above, as the H2 at scale concept explains and intends to do is to tie everything together, and allows for more efficiency and significant business opportunity, and all of that can lead to economic growth. That's opposite to maybe other areas, but that's, I think, one of the main drivers in Texas compared to other areas, that it has to make economic sense, and that also results in job growth and opportunities that should not be missed. So expertise exists in Texas, as you've heard from Bob and Varun, as well as others, and I think we'll hear more about that, and I'm looking forward to hear more from the other presenters and have a discussion about this, and I hope we have enough time for discussion, but I'll leave it with that. I'll leave it to Varun to pick up where we go next.
Great. Thank you so much, Nico. We would like to move on to the next session, but before we do that, let me pose one question. You did offer, Nico, to interested entities, companies who are interested in the hydrogen at scale, and especially the Port of Houston study, to reach out to you or Mike, and your contacts are here. Could you give us one example? How can these, how does a typical company engage, right? And once they engage, what does a data interaction to inform your modeling? What shape does it take? Give us some high-level indication, if you can.
I'll try to. So what a benefit of our interactions as well is that it really gets people on the same page. That's one thing. So there's a lot of missing information with those interested in this. And first of all, having a conversation is a good start to see where there is a fit. But then at a high level, we can give suggestions on who to talk to, who to engage with, and what the opportunities are. It really comes down to an exchange of information, as well as like offering of expertise. We don't know how specific companies operate, be it an energy company in refining, for example, or a shipping company that has a lot of ships that wants to move towards zero emissions, or wants to make use of hydrogen, whatever form or format it's stored. And we can give suggestions on where to go, and we can provide that, and then they could tell us, like, man, you're so off with your assumptions about maritime use of hydrogen. If you don't change that, then you're deceiving basically everyone with the outcomes of your study. So we're making a mutual exchange of information, and with that, everyone will benefit from making this a good opportunity for business, as well as academic and other areas and markets in the US.
Great, thank you, Nico. And that does sound somewhat similar to what Daryl Wilson from the Hydrogen Council was sharing earlier, where different entities, stakeholders, companies, provide their inputs, data in a high integrity environment, and then the system overall learns better and interacts better, coordinates better. So thank you so much, Nico, for sharing that. Again, if anyone has questions, Nico's contact as well as Mike Lewis's contact, they're both on this slide, so please follow up with them. Let's move on to our next session.